Hello and welcome to homework 8.08, which is all about factoring completely. What we have to remember is that when we see factor completely, it means to factor twice. So for all of these problems, we're going to have two steps. And this year, those two steps are going to be pretty consistent. All right, so the first step is always going to be to take out a GCF. And then the second step is always going to be to do either dots, which is the difference of two squares, or it's going to be to do the multiply and add technique that we've been doing the last couple of days. Now, next year it won't always be the GCF first, but for right now, GCF first, and then dots and multiply and add second. All right, so let's take a look at this first question. Which of the following represents the trinomial 4x squared plus 28x plus 40 factored completely? Okay, so before we even get started, we can cross this one out. And the reason we can cross that one out is because there's no GCF out front. All right, so that option is pretty much off the table. All right, so now we have to look at this and we say, all right, what's the GCF of 4, 28, and 40? Now remember, if you have problems figuring out the GCF, you can go to Math, Num, Choice 9, which is GCD, and you can only type in two numbers at once, so I could type in 28, 40, and that's going to give me an answer of 4. Now in this case, it's kind of obvious what your GCF is going to be, but if it was a different number there other than 4. Let's say it was 8. Let's say it was 12. Let's say it was 16. What you have to do when there's three numbers is go to Math, Num, GCD, and then you use your answer that you got from the first step, which was 4, and you use whatever number you didn't use the first time. So in our case, the GCF of 4 and 4 is still going to be 4, but if this had been something else, sometimes you do need to do that second step. So we know our GCF is going to be 4, so let's actually cross this one out too, because this one has a GCF of 2. So we're going to divide everything by 4. 4 is going to come out front, and then we actually do the division. So we're left with x squared plus 7x plus 10. All right, and now what we're looking for is we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 10 and add to 7. Now, because this is multiple choice, we can actually just look at these and say, all right, 10 and 1. Does that multiply to 10? Yes. Does it add to 7? No. 5 and 2. Does that multiply to 10? Yes. Does it add to 7? Yes. So that's going to be our answer. But what you also can do is you can go to y equals on your calculator, type in 10 divided by x, go to your table, and this will give you all of the numbers that multiply to 10, and then you just have to go through and find the pair that adds to 7. And again, it is that 2 and 5 right there. So this is going to be our choice, which is choice 2. Okay, so just choice 2 over there. All right, number 2, factored completely. The trinomial 2x squared minus 10x minus 12 is represented by, all right, again, these two we can cross out right away because there's no GCF out front. So if there's no GCF, that's not factored completely. All right, so now if we look at the other two choices, they're kind of telling us that our GCF, it's going to be 2. So each of these get divided by 2. We're left with 2 outside, and then x squared minus 5x minus 6. Which means we're looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 6 and add to negative 5. So again, if we look at this, negative 3 times 2 is negative 6, but negative 3 plus 2 is negative 1, so that one's not going to work. Negative 6 times 1 is negative 6. Negative 6 plus 1 is negative 5. So this is going to be our choice right here. Choice 1. All right, so now let's look at some that are not multiple choice. All right, factor each trinomial expression completely and check. All right, so again, if we look at number 3 here, all right, if I go to math, num, and then GCD, again, I can pick any two to start with, but let's say I start with 40 and 100. It gives me a GCF of 20. Now, I can't divide 4 by 20, so I got to keep going, math, num, GCD, and now I use the 20 that I got and the 4 that I have left over, and that's going to tell me that my GCF is actually 4 here. All right, so that's kind of the two-step process you have to do sometimes. All right, so we're going to divide each of these by 4. The 4 comes out front, and we're left with w squared minus 10w plus 25. So remember, I always multiply to the back number, so I'm multiplying to 25, or the number without the variable with it. Whoops, this x should be a w, sorry about that. And then we we add to negative 10. So we're multiplying to 25, that's the number without the variable, and we're adding to negative 10, that's the number with the variable. So again, to make this easier, you can just go, all right, y equals 25 divided by x, go to your table. Now because we have to add to a negative 10, we're going to use the negative numbers, and then we just go through. Which ones add to negative 10? Nope, nope. Oh, there we go. Negative 5 and negative 5. So make sure you don't lose that 4. That 4 needs to stay in front, but then we just get w minus 5, w minus 5. Okay, take a look at the next one. All right, 2n squared plus 4n minus 16. So we're looking for the GCF of 2, 4, and 16. Those are all even there, so I'm going to say our GCF in this case is 2. All right, because we're not going to be able to use anything bigger here. We can't use anything bigger than 2, and since the rest of these are even, 2 is going to work. Again, you can use your calculator and just go through that process, but on this one, I can just sort of see that it's going to be 2. So 2 goes out front, n squared plus 2n minus 8. So again, I'm looking for numbers that multiply to negative 8 and then add to positive 2. So if I go here, y equals negative 8 divided by x. All right, let's see. 1 and negative 8. Nope, that's going to be negative 7. 2 and negative 4. That's going to be negative 2, but I want a positive 2. 4 and negative 2, or 4 minus 2. Yep, that's going to give us our positive 2, so there are our numbers that we need. Positive 4 and a negative 2. So when we write our final answer, it's going to be 2n plus 4 n minus 2. Okay. Again, we can check these the same way we check anything in this unit. We would just put our original problem into y1, so in this case 2, and even though it's n, we use x. 2x squared plus 4x minus 16, and then our answer, which was 2, x plus 4, x minus 2. And when we go to the table, both sides should match. And if both sides match all the way down, that tells you that you factored it correctly. All right, let's take a look at the back. All right. So again, we've got 3, negative 6, and negative 24. Again, if you're doubting yourself, you can just go to math, num, choice 9, and say to yourself, all right, what's the GCF of 3 and 6? Okay, it's 3, and then we go math, num, GCD. We use our answer, which was 3. We use the number we didn't get to yet, which is 24, and we're going to see that the GCF is still 3 here. All right. So we're going to divide by 3, divide by 3, divide by 3. 3 comes out front. We get x squared minus 2x minus 8, which then means we're looking for numbers that multiply to negative 8, because that's the one without the variable, and they need to add to negative 2. All right, so we go to our calculator. we type in negative 8 divided by x. We look at our table. Let's see, 1 minus 8. Nope, that's not going to work. 2 minus 4. Yeah, that'll give us a negative 2. So there are our numbers. It's 3x plus 2, x minus 4. All right, on number 6, again, the GCF of 5, 40, and 60. If you're unsure, you just bring up your calculator. You go to Math, Num, GCD. Maybe you start with 40 and 60. Again, it doesn't matter which two you start with. That gave us a GCF of 20. So we go to it again, and we use the 20 that we got, and we use the 5 that's left over. And that's going to give us a final GCF of 5. So each of these is going to be divided by 5. 5 goes out front. We get x squared plus 8x plus 12. So that means we're looking for two numbers that multiply to 12 and add to 8. So we go over here, y equals 12 divided by x. All right, let's see, 1 and 12, nope. 2 and 6, yeah, 2 plus 6 is 8. So those are our numbers, so it's going to be 5x plus 2, x plus 6. Okay. All right, last two problems here. Again, we need the GCF of 2, negative 16, and negative 18. Again, all three of these are even, and this one's a 2, so the biggest GCF we're going to be able to come up with here is just 2. If this had been bigger, we might have been able to come up with something else, but since this is 2, we're not going to be able to go any higher than 2 here. All right, so this is going to give us x squared minus 8x minus 9, which means I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 9 and then add to negative 8. So again, negative 9 divided by x. Let's see, 1 minus 9. Is that going to be negative 8? I think it is, but again, if you're ever doubting that, you just quit and say, all right, 1 plus negative 9. I mean, you don't quit, you go to the quit button on the calculator. 1 plus negative 9 is negative 8. That's exactly what we wanted, so there we have our numbers. It's going to be 2x plus 1, because the 1 was positive, and x minus 9, because the 9 was negative. Okay. All right, last but not least, we need the GCF of 3x cubed, 6x squared, and 24x. All right, so what makes this one a little trickier is the number isn't too bad. 3, 6, and 24. That's going to be a 3. And again, you can math num choice 9 to figure that out. But what we have to notice here is that they all have x's, an x cubed, an x squared, and an x. So that means we can also take out an x to the first. Remember, this is third, second, first. We always have to use the smallest exponent when they all have a variable. So that would be 3x to the first. So each of these are really getting divided by 3x to the first. So 3x comes out front. And when we divide variables, we subtract their exponents. So x cubed divided by x to the first is going to become x squared. The 3 divided by 3 is just 1, so I could either write 1x squared, or I could just write x squared. 6 divided by 3 is 2, and then x squared divided by x to the first, 2 minus 1 is 1, so I could write that as x to the first, or I could just write it as x. Minus 24 divided by 3, 24 divided by 3 is 8, and then x to the first divided by x to the first, 1 minus 1 is 0, so I can kind of think of that as the x's just canceling out. All right, and now that leaves me with this right here where I'm looking for two numbers that multiply to negative 8 and add to positive 2. And again, we actually already did that one on the front here. We were looking for two numbers that multiplied to negative 8 and added to positive 2. We saw that that was a positive 4 and a negative 2. So we can use those same numbers here. All right, it's going to be 3x and then x plus 4, x minus 2. All right, and that is the end of this. All right, I hope this was helpful. Have a good day, and I'll see you later.